Welcome to our podcast, first episode.
This is
Yeah.
actually a rework of our original episode one.
Well, what are you talking about? This is we've never done this before. This is the first time.
Sure.
Yeah, man. That's rule number one of the industry. You never admit your mistakes.
Is it really?
It's not. It's not. I just made that up.
Well, this podcast is teaching material for
Hmm.
people who's looking to get into this industry.
Animation, television, and video games,
Yeah.
and how the industry is reacting to all
I
that.
think you just
Yeah.
mentioned our industry. We didn't even mention it. We start talking about it. Um,
Oh, what industry? I work in finance.
yeah, I'm a
No, no,
lawyer
no.
too, right? No.
Yes, yes.
Um, Yeah, I definitely think though, I think the recent years our industry got more popular, I guess. I don't know. Definitely, I think when I was in school, it was like one of those industry that isn't that popular to everyone. As an Asian, like it's definitely
Hmm.
not an industry where it's recommended or like
Yeah.
encouraged by parents for sure.
Totally. I totally know what you mean. For me, it was the slightly opposite. My parents were encouraging. It
Oh,
was the community that wasn't not encouraging, but the community didn't see it as a potential career. And one thing you brought up is the interest now in the industry,
hmm,
because I think there's so much more movies, TV, video games, so much more, from mobile to this, you name it, right?
yeah.
So a lot more people or fans are like jumping into the tools themselves.
Yep, for
And
sure.
I remember when we started, uh, the industry was still it was very difficult to actually learn the softwares, for example, right?
Hmm.
There was
Yep,
not a lot of tutorials. You learned a lot on the job, or through school, obviously. And then
yep.
even before then, by the time we got on, we still had a lot of tools we could use. But before us, the generation before us, it was all programming
Yeah,
based,
that's true.
right?
Yeah.
So as the decades went by, it became easier and easier and more accessible to
Yeah, for
everybody.
sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when I was in school for animation and gaming,
Hmm.
um, there was like, again, it was one of those things where there's less girls, a lot less girls than guys. I think it just wasn't something that was very encouraged.
It's true, actually. Um, and it was such a rare field too. Like I don't think universities look for it. Was only college courses that I found. Like
Oh, that's
in
true. Yeah.
like this speaking from I know we're gonna kind of out where we live. Speaking about in Canada,
Yep.
right? Our college system was only where you would be able to get these
Yep.
kind of courses.
And
Uh, yeah.
I guess it's the also a Asian thing as well.
Hmm.
They're like, yeah, you don't want your kids to go into college. You always want to get them to
Yeah.
get into university. So
Exactly.
it's one of those things. It's like, oh, you're gonna starve to death as an
Yeah.
artist. But I think even parents wise, like they don't understand um what this industry is. They just think you're drawing basically, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you won't earn any money. You're gonna starve to death.
Yeah.
Like all the other artists. I mean, not that it's like a lot of artists, even famous ones, they only
Hmm.
become famous after they die. So, and also during their
Yeah.
lifetime, some of them are pretty broke, right? So,
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
yeah, it's not a good precedence.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. You mentioned the parents thing. It's for me also like they encouraged me to do university first.
Yes, yes.
Now we got lucky. I guess I'm going to go further in
Mm-hmm.
Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh, dear.
Uh, some of the schools that you could apply for
Yep.
had postgraduates degrees,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So you needed to have some kind of degree before you could even get in. So that's where it kind of benefited me in the sense that I'm guessing yourself too,
Mm-hmm.
where we could get a degree. This way, we indirectly ended up with a backup plan. Like
Yeah.
for me, my backup was teaching as well as
Mm,
mathematics because
I see.
in school I did fine arts
Mm,
and mathematics. So and I was deciding, okay, I can kind of fall between those two worlds if I need to, see how it
mm,
goes. And I was always had a passion for teaching, so
mm-hmm.
it's always fascinating me.
Yeah.
Just helping young minds,
Right.
find their way.
Yeah.
Um, but my first priority was always try to get into animation school.
Mm. So
Mhm.
so you did university first then before getting into
Yes,
college
yes,
for
yeah, yeah,
this field.
yeah. Actually, I started university. Computer programming is what I got into. Actually,
Oh, really?
that was my that was my course. That's what I got into. So one valuable lesson I learned right off the first year, which which my dad told me, but he told me one semester too late,
Mm.
was if you're failing a course, drop it. Just drop it. Don't worry about it. Just drop it.
Oh,
And I made the mistake of I was failing computer science.
oh wow. Actually, you know what? It's the
Yeah.
first time I heard about you going into computer science. I don't
Oh,
think you ever mentioned this because I know you mentioned
yeah.
fine arts, but I'm like computer science. This is the first time.
Well, it's a dark history in my life, so I
I
try to.
see. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's pretend that never happened, right?
Exactly, exactly. This is the last time I'll talk about it. No, no, I'm just kidding.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it was quite difficult. And I will say one thing, like
Mm.
being a minority myself, sometimes it's very hard to understand people with like really difficult accents and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be honest, our teacher did have a fairly thick accent, and it didn't help me to understand because I had zero understanding of this was C++. Plus plus.
Mm. Yeah.
And so going into it, I was like completely lost.
Oh.
I understood everything up to arrays. That's what hurt me the most.
That's why you're
I
always stuck there.
I
Interesting.
always got stuck there, and that's what just punched me in the gut, and I was just like, "What is this?" But I think in today's resources,
Mm.
so many courses, so many this.
Yeah.
I would almost say that if I had to do it again, I would try to do a course before I even got to university level. Like take a
Mm.
summer course just on
Yeah.
computer if it's C++, do a C++ course.
Hmm.
And that gives you a solid foundation. And I would recommend that for anything. If you can find a way to
Yeah.
get a solid foundation, you're good to go.
That's true. Well, no, I feel like it is quite important nowadays. I mean,
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, AI, blah, 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 all
Yeah.
these tech stuff. It's actually like knowing a little bit of that or even how programming works actually helps a lot for basically, I will say almost any job, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, I was actually lucky enough that in high school, we actually had really good technology courses in our school um, by like some teachers from like pretty famous universities that came back to teaching tech. So I got a pretty early introduction to programming, to like even some of the circuits, hardware kind of thing.
Oh,
Um,
nice. This was in high school?
yeah, this was in high school. Like,
Nice.
I don't know, the course was like information technology. We had computer
Mm.
science. We have like, yeah, even like I think there was a computer engineering course that like we got to work with the circuit boards, the, resistors and all that stuff.
Oh,
It was like
nice.
a super early introduction to it. So, it actually kind of made it easier. I was so I also went to university before I came into this field,
Hmm.
and I was actually in computer engineering. So because of high school and all those courses, I was actually cruising in my first year. But I wasn't like you, so I didn't drop out. Even though I wasn't doing that great,
Oh,
I passed. I
okay, that's good.
graduated.
That's good.
I graduated computer
Yeah,
engineering, but like
nice.
it wasn't a fun time for me either. I think I kind of lost interest by like
Hmm.
second, third year, and I was just like kind of trying to pass. Because like
No, it's good. Yeah,
Asian parents are like,
yeah,
yeah, you can go to college, but like finish your university degree first.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'll finish my university degree first.
Yes.
But
Uh,
it was quite painful. But yeah, like
Mhm.
they didn't let me quit.
No, me neither. Me neither. I had to finish it too, but I did change my major. In my
Right.
case. Yeah, yeah,
Uh
yeah.
yeah, I think it was quite usual for people to change a bit changing their major and everything. Had quite a few even
Hmm.
in computer engineering, there's quite a few who just had first year and they decided, okay, yeah, this is too hard, this is not for me, and they just kind of switched out.
Yeah.
Um, it's a good thing to kind of note that uh when you're actually in university or college, you know,
Hmm.
to basically if it doesn't fit you, find something else that does instead of
Yeah.
like keep going.
Exactly. You want to find like this is something interesting actually. This kind of relates to a topic I wanted to talk about in schooling in general. Educating yourself with something that you're passionate about and then trying to get a career with,
Hmm.
right? That kind of topic, it's very vague right now. But like for example, you know how some people say, "Oh, do what you love, and this way you will work. You're not working."
Yeah.
You know?
But that's actually kind of a false
Yes,
statement though.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you
Yeah,
find what you love and you'll never have to work a single day in your life.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, it is a nice speech for
Hmm.
movies, but
Yes.
I like being in the industry and working now, like I don't agree. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you don't really agree either. Like
Hmm.
we still like what we do,
Yeah.
but it's definitely not like, oh yeah, it's always enjoyable. There's a lot of aspects. It's like a normal job. There's a lot of things that you do have to still endure or figure out just trying to get through it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Work is work. To me, work
Exactly.
is work.
At the end of the day, it needs to pay the bills, you
Yeah,
know.
for sure. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I'm actually grateful to be in this industry because it is I consider this to be a luxury industry, you know.
It is actually.
Uh,
That's true. I
you
mean,
know.
you're in the
Mhm.
entertainment industry technically. Like
Exactly.
we're considered entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time I remember we tried to get like let's work from home, can we set that up
Hmm.
through work and blah blah blah. But that was always like an uphill battle to get the studios to kind of agree to that,
Yep.
and it was interesting battle. We'll get to this part too when we talk about in later episodes about the work experiences.
Yeah.
But just to add to just a part of the topic that we're talking about, because we're this entertainment industry and it's
Mm.
kind of just it is that luxury element.
Yep.
The working from home felt more natural because,
It
for
does.
example, when the pandemic hit, to me, it felt like, okay, yeah, work from home. We should be working from home.
Yeah.
So this way, we're not getting into the way of people who actually need to work,
Mm.
and we are doing our part in that sense.
Mm.
But I found the companies pretty quickly switched back to be like, no, you have to come back.
Yeah.
But we'll get into those kind of discussions later on.
Yeah. It's
You know.
it's a very
Hmm.
conflicting discussion. And I know
Hmm.
there's people who prefer either, but yeah, it's a interesting topic as well.
Hmm.
So just going back to school, I guess,
Yep.
for you, um, after you did your fine arts degree,
Hmm.
that's when you get into arts, I guess, actually animation course.
Yeah, in the animation course, animation school, like I went in there without knowing the software.
Mm.
And, I did 2 years, two postgraduate courses.
Mm.
The first one I did, so I'll quickly mention this, it's kind of funny. They wanted us to make our own like short, and so that was the whole goal from the first class to the last class.
Oh, okay.
So that was their way of teaching us the entire software, getting to know every single department so we could decide what department we were most interested in.
Mm.
Now, the first film you're making it like poetic. You're making it from the heart. You're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is gonna be like beautiful. I'm gonna win the Oscar for this kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you're practicing your speech in the mirror kind of idea. you know. But what I found was when I finally finished it, everybody would like compliment me on like, oh wow, the textures were really nice. Yeah, good job. Very nice textures.
It's
And
the
it
plot. The
was
plot.
Exactly, exactly. No one talked about the mood, no, oh, how emotional. Nope, nothing. It was actually my brother. He actually came to me. He's like, I'm gonna PG it a little bit. He's like, this is crap, bro. This is a piece of crap. And I was like, I'm not talking to you forever now. Like he was cut. But then 2 days later, I called him. I'm like, you're 100% right. And I realized, you know what? The second year when I did, I took a more advanced version of that same course,
I see.
and so this one also same idea. They make you do a short, but this time I decided, you know what? I need to make a short that is more appealing to what the industry wants.
Mm.
Like whether it's more Disney-esque or, more cartoony, whatever was necessary, like a little gimmicky kind of character and a little mini conflict and resolution to the conflict. Very
Yeah.
straightforward, to the point, very nice looking.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, I got a lot of interviews,
Mm.
but at that time the industry wasn't hiring, so I
Yeah.
didn't get any jobs, but I got a lot of interest. They even added I think they did like one of the best from the class,
Oh, okay.
my short. So I was kind of excited
Oh,
about that.
I see.
But it kind of told me a very valuable lesson was if I need a job, I need to make sure
You
I
need to
know
be a
who
sellout.
I need to be sellout. It's true. Yeah, I was gonna say I need to know my target audience, but if you would have called it a sellout, I guess.
It's no, but it's funny because a lot of people,
Yeah.
I guess in class was always using that term, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's
Mhm.
like, for me, that was like one of the things that is like, oh, everyone tries not to do, but some people do it, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I was gonna ask you about your schooling. Like your animation schooling was completely different from mine. Like,
yes.
what was your experience like, and how did they kind of work with you guys to
Um,
get to the end result?
well, for me, cause like I went into college, for animation after I graduated, university. So like it wasn't a post-grad program. It was kind of like a start from zero thing, right? Um,
Mhm.
so my course was like a 3-year course, and it was 2 years of classical animation. So it's everything on paper, everything hand drawn, and then the
Oh, wow.
last year
Okay.
was when we actually learned 3D, um,
Yeah.
which at the time I don't think it's a very good idea that they did it that way. Just
Hmm.
because I feel like they made a lot of students interested in the 2D world, but the reality was at the time like 2D was almost extinct and all
Hmm.
the jobs were 3D. But everyone, when they got into the third year and they had to learn 3D, they were so reluctant to do it just because they just weren't very accustomed to it. And
Yeah.
it just felt so foreign to them. So a lot of my classmates couldn't really adapt to it. They just didn't like it. So they're like, okay, yeah, I still want to do 2D. Um, but like, we all know that even now, the industry, the 2Ds is a lot of it is Flash.
Yeah, and you're right. Even in Flash, you need to be technical. You need to learn software, computers, you name it. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
I mean, I was really happy about like the
Hmm.
first 2 years because like all the courses are very interesting. You got like your classical animation. We actually had storyboard, uh, character design,
Hmm.
layout, and all that. And it was like all drawing. We had kind of a mini studio in school, and everyone just stayed there and like
Yeah.
did their homework for every course, and it was just a lot of paper, a lot of pencils. um
Yeah.
and then yeah, third year suddenly it's like, hey guys, you gotta learn Maya.
Yeah.
You gotta learn 3ds Max. You want to
Yeah.
go into gaming, you want to go into the 3D industry, like that's where the jobs are.
Hmm.
And people started panicking because like a lot of people, it was just such a huge change from 2D to 3D.
Yeah.
Even the concept like of just grasping it, people don't, it's really hard. I mean, even when we get into our industry and you hear about some people just transitioning from 2D to 3D, and the stories of like how, oh yeah, they didn't know the concept of distance. They end
Yeah.
up scaling the assets to like tiny things. in the same frame. Yeah.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up because yeah, I had a few people at my class that came from the 2D program of that school, and
Mm-hmm.
they were having such a hard time.
Yep.
I saw, like, for example, like in 3D, I was very grateful because they actually, in my 3D class, they actually taught me all the principles
Mm-hmm.
of animation, which was amazing
Yeah.
because that really gave me the foundation that I needed
Yeah.
without taking 2D.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate 2D for what it was. It's beautiful. It's a
Yeah.
work of art in its own, you know. But I saw people who came from 2D and they were doing like keyframes every frame, as
Mm.
if it's a 2D. They're like drawing for every single frame,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was so fascinating to see. And I tried to explain to some of them, listen, you get some of these curves for free. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need to draw every single frame. You can just have a nice, beautiful S curve
Yeah.
by deleting all these keys and letting the computer take care of the curve,
Yeah.
and that was a very hard concept for people who are so ingrained in 2D, I saw,
Yes. It's true. I
hmm
mean, there was always like a different workflows in 3D that you follow, but like again, a lot of people because they're not accustomed to it, they'll be keying every frame, trying to do this, trying to do that. But like also, you know how the curve works. Um,
yeah,
if you get it wrong, then the in-betweens will be messed up, the
yeah,
Euler filter.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Is
I
it
think
Euler or is it Euler?
it's Euler.
Okay,
I could
I
be wrong. It'll be funny if we
I
go
believe
search
you.
it later.
You're
It's
the
wrong.
computer engineer. I believe
No, I did graduate. I did not fail. I graduated.
you. Okay,
Um,
okay. Wait, what are you trying to say? No, no, just kidding.
no, it was actually quite funny because even in computer engineering, because I was so bored of like
hmm
the actual field, like the actual major, I ended up like for a lot of the courses where I don't actually the elective courses, I went like crazy. Like I actually took the ones that were like really like random, that's non-related because people would be like taking computer security, taking like anything that still had to do with tech, but I'll be like taking Greek mythology or like
Oh, that's cool, actually.
anthropology. um but I did take one course
hmm
which was actually computer graphics. But it's like what I thought it was computer graphics, it was actually not exactly because it was all programming based. So we're literally doing computer graphics. We actually had to make a game, the
Oh,
end
wow, that's
course
pretty cool.
project, but
Yeah,
it was all programming. Like there's no drawing at
wow.
no
Yeah,
3D software. It was just literally programming.
yeah,
And that was actually a very informative course. But probably the like super technical,
yeah.
but it
Actually,
also got
yeah.
me like a lot of more interest about like in the 3D animation industry because they were teaching about like ray how to write a ray tracer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that
Oh,
was
that's pretty
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, ray tracing back then. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
concept's quite simple. So
Yeah.
like I don't think it's not that hard to write one, but like,
hmm
all the edge cases and all the other stuff is like what makes a good one, right?
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Actually, we'll come back to ray tracing in a minute, but just a side note. So one of the reasons I took computer science was
Yeah.
because one of the courses later on was computer science for gaming.
Oh.
And it's funny, that's what I was trying to reach.
It's like in front of the
But
door, you can't get any
yeah,
further.
I
No,
can't get
just
any
kidding.
further. Sorry, you do not have enough levels, not enough skill, not enough XP. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it.
It's
Get
like,
out.
the level 100 and
Yeah,
you're like level 2.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I was like, oh man, but yeah, no, that's pretty cool. That sounds like the path I was trying to get to, like eventually, like programming games themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's
cool.
I think it also comes as a surprise because once you get into the 3D territory, it's actually a lot more technical than what a lot of people think it is. So
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of artists who actually gets into the field would be like it's just hard for them to grasp all the concepts, the new terms and like how it works.
it's true. Actually, even for us, just last I think last film that we were on,
Mm.
we were working on character effects, and I remember learning about Delaney mesh. right?
Mm.
Delaney or Delaney?
Yeah,
Delaney,
I think
I
it's
think,
Delaney.
right?
Yeah.
And that was so fascinating to me because it's like we're so used to, yeah, everything needs to be quads, everything needs to be
Yes.
quads, right? But this was like, no, we generated Delaney mesh, which has it's all triangles, but
Yep.
they're all not uniform,
Mm.
and so it kind of helps with the
Creases.
simulation and
Yeah.
creases really nicely.
Yep.
And I remember trying to explain that to some of the more senior people at the studio we were at, and at first they were like, no, that doesn't make sense. We want quads, and I'm like,
Mm.
no, no, trust me, have a look. And they were so surprised to see the difference, which was kind of refreshing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we left before that project ended, so we don't know if they ever used it, but it was kind of cool.
That's true.
But Marvelous Designer still has Delaney Mesh as one of their key
Yeah.
exports. Yeah.
Yeah. I still think that's a excellent software. I just like the first time
Yes.
just seeing how you can just do tailoring in there and
Hmm.
just getting the whole cloth moving. It's like and
Yeah.
simulate it so easily. It's crazy.
I
Yeah.
know there's been a few shorts that actually used Marvel's Designer
Mm-hmm.
fully simulated and
Yep.
exported the simulation without running a Houdini simulation or a Maya simulation or,
Yeah.
which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool. Yeah. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
this goes back to, I guess, current schooling,
Yep.
which is where I think a lot of people, in my opinion, have a great foundation they can start before even going to start school.
Yep.
Like I know I had someone, a family friend, who asked me, my son was interested in animation,
Mm.
and I said sure. And what I did was I found a couple of tutorial courses, and I
Yep.
recommended these courses as a starting point. And
Yeah.
the trial version of those softwares are always free and stuff like that.
Yes.
I said, and to me, try them out, see
Yeah.
how they are, and if you find, yes, this is something that'll interest you, then you can have this career path. For us, it was different because we were just like, I guess this is our career. We have to learn the software.
Yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting though.
Yeah.
A lot of things are more available now, like
Mhm.
especially all the tutorials that are online for free. But
Yeah.
like I remember even like when Blender first came out and it was like, oh, what is this? What is this thing? It's like they're trying to take over Maya, but it's free, so everyone
Hmm.
is able to use it. And now like you can actually see there's a lot more people using it.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, that kind of brings me back. Like, I found that in school, though, even though it was a good program,
Hmm.
there was some stuff that was kind of out of date and not industry standard. Because, like,
Yeah.
in my time, we were learning how to render in Mental Ray, like, but nobody really uses that once we actually get into the industry. So
Yeah.
I don't know if if it's like the same for you.
Yeah, mine was the same. We were doing mentally because that came with Maya, I believe,
Yeah, that's
right?
probably, I guess,
So it was
cost is an
just
issue.
exactly. It was out of the box. We just use it. I know what was it once Arnold became more popular. I think that option,
Mm-hmm.
but that was a plugin, right? If I'm not mistaken, Arnold.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing with the industry. You end up with so many plugins and options because new companies will find better ways. Like Carbon
Yep.
is a good one, right? Where
Oh
when we're
yeah.
doing character effects,
I'm not sure if it's
Carbon.
still used now. I mean, it had good
Yeah.
potential, but might be
Yes.
not anymore.
I mean, it was I would say it was probably the fastest I've seen
Mm-hmm.
to see a result, which was very
Mm.
impressive. I was like, wow, that's a good simulation. Um, but yeah, I hope they're still there because to me, competition is important in every industry.
For sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
you
You
know,
can't have just one thing. I mean,
hmm
I'm glad that there's Blender.
yeah,
I'm also glad that, there's Unreal and anyone can just play with it for
yeah,
free. It's
hmm
it's pretty awesome.
yeah,
Like trying to get into the industry is not that hard if I guess if you're actually serious about it, then like there's
yeah.
all these tutorial online that you can actually do. And actually, it
hmm
surprises me nowadays that a lot more people play with these things
Yeah,
for a hobby.
yeah.
Like,
You're right.
those MMDs that we actually
Yeah.
see. Some games release their characters so for other people's to use or like
hmm
not even release. I mean there's always also like data miners
Yeah.
that kind of just grabs the models so like people can play
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just really impressive, actually. It's really
Yeah.
good. And they'll recreate the rigs and the simulation after they
Yeah.
grab the models. It's so impressive. I have to give it textures. They'll redo the
Yeah.
textures if they don't come out,
I
you
mean,
know?
you hear high
Yeah.
school students like kind of talking about how they're like doing shaders,
Yep.
they're
Yep.
plugging in shaders, they're like trying to render stuff, like
Hmm.
also doing lightings, doing camera work.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
it's not always great, but it's like at least they're playing with it, and
Yeah.
it's like just yeah, to me seeing that now is just like wow. I know.
Exactly.
Being in the industry, if other people are doing that for their hobby, then you have to improve.
Well, this goes to an important question then.
Hmm.
And I'm curious about your answer on this one.
Mm.
Is postgraduate or even degree important to work in this industry? Or do you think you can just do the courses that are available online
Mm.
to get a good, a solid demo reel to get a career in this industry?
Actually, that's a very interesting question. So I don't, I think my answer differs for like, I guess the two phases. Because
Mhm,
the first time I got into like the first animation studio and I
mhm,
actually talked to people, and it seems like a lot of them actually got into the industry just by doing those postgraduate courses
yeah.
for animation. Now, that said, um, I don't know, just having kind of a degree or like a diploma in like a relative or relevant course is pretty
Mhm,
important. So it's like
yeah.
people still kind of look at it. Um,
Especially in the beginning, right?
exactly.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would add actually also the connections you make
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the school, because this goes into our, I guess we can get into our first jobs. My first job was through a friend who was in the class with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I noticed was I could not get my resume out far enough or anywhere. I applied everywhere
Mm.
with my resume and
Yeah.
I got zero traction, you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for my until my friend actually recommended me a job in Vancouver
Mm.
that I was able to go
Yeah.
to that job.
Mm.
And so to me, that's probably one of the biggest important factors of going to school
Yeah.
is the connection you make,
I see.
and also like internships nowadays. You can have
Yeah.
internships. You can actually work at these studios, and
Mm-hmm.
that same philosophy. It's all about those connections.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just gonna add one last component, which is like to me, what you learn either via taking online courses or in the school.
Mm.
To me, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's those, and as actually one other component I'll add, based on the instructor you get, whether it's online or in person, if you have an amazing instructor, you can really get good foundation.
Oh,
Like
for
I was,
sure. I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, like I talked earlier about if my instructor had never taught us the principles of animation and just taught us how to use the software,
Mm.
I don't think I would have made a good character effects artist,
Mm.
But yeah.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I was lucky enough, I guess, for the place where I went to for animation school, all of the instructors are actually working in the industry at the time. So
Mhm.
it was actually pretty good. We always got like updated info for like I guess how the industry works. Um, but that said, like yeah, unfortunately, when they're actually not hiring in the industry, um,
Yeah.
all of the positions are always gated by 3 to 5 years of experience.
Which
Which
really
I mean, if you're a
sucks.
newbie, nobody gets,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the only problem, like the biggest problem I find is, you know, everyone coming out of school, their demo
Hmm.
reel is not that amazing. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
just not. You have a
Yeah.
couple people who has good demo reels, but like most of other ones kind of doesn't look that great. And
Hmm.
it's really hard for them to go in with their resume and their demo reel. Now,
Yeah.
if like you worked in a studio for like 1 or 2 years and you're switching jobs, now it's easier for you because everything is, you know, like the most attention is actually put onto your demo reel then afterwards.
Hmm. Yeah.
So then if you have something good, then it's way easier to get going, even if you don't have 3 to 5 years of experience. But like just
Yeah.
for a student, getting into it is so hard.
Yeah.
Um, and like you said, it's almost, if they do offer more internships, it's probably the only way you can get in. It's
Yeah.
like they don't pay you as well. I mean, if they, I don't even know, maybe nowadays they have to pay you, but like I think I was in an internship for a little bit, and like they do pay, but it's like not very high. But I've also heard about internships before where some people got into, they don't pay them at all.
Hmm. I know there's some studios, animation and gaming, that actually have set up a relationship with schools.
Yeah.
So again, you're right. I do hope they do pay them if they end up working on the project,
Yeah.
because that wouldn't be cool.
Yeah, no, otherwise it's not cool. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, as long as they um if they make you work on something
Hmm.
that is going to be shown, like it's actual real show, it's not
Yeah.
like some testing thing that's inside the studio, then you should be paid.
Yeah.
I feel like. Also, you should be getting a credit as well.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is from a perspective of us almost like starting our first jobs.
Mm,
I want to jump a little ahead in the perspective when I was hiring
mm,
people.
yeah.
And one thing, you're 100% right. Like the demo reels never showed me what I used to actually, let me rephrase that. What I used to look for in demo reels when I
Mm,
was hiring. So the positions I was usually hiring was character effects, character
mm,
filing,
mm,
layout,
yeah.
right? So those positions, what I always noticed was I was looking for the potential and the
Mm,
interest in
yeah.
those specific categories.
Yeah.
And if I notice if someone came in and said they weren't 100% sure what they were interested in,
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what would be you might be, then I would ask them if they were interested in character filing.
Yeah.
Because character filing allowed you to go between assets, animation, geometry sculpting, and so on and so on. And then with
Mm-hmm.
character effects, if someone was interested in purely character effects, which is like cloth animation, muscles,
Yeah.
hair, all that kind of stuff, I'd be like, okay, perfect. So that's what I was always looking for, that kernel of like interest.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute the person said, yeah, that's what they're interested in, I'd be like, okay, perfect. I can actually help develop them into the skills they need.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always keep the door open for them to let me know what department they wanted to venture into later. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
people who were interested in lighting, layout, and so I would always transfer them over because I never want to keep them in a department they're unhappy.
Yeah.
That to me is not the reason why I ever joined the industry myself,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to be in a situation where you just mindlessly just clicking buttons every single day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this goes back to, I guess, when we first started.
Mm.
To be honest, a lot of our industry is built on the idea of doing mindless work.
That's,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately that is. I
Yes.
find that, but
Hmm.
also like actually going back a little bit,
Hmm.
I was gonna say I mean there's obviously major roles that everyone know about, like being an
Hmm.
animator, being a lighter, being effects
Yeah.
artist, even being a layout artist. See, like when I was coming out of school,
Hmm.
layout artist was cool, but like you just never really understood like, okay, what do I do for a demo reel if I want to be a layout artist?
Yeah.
Because I guess even in school they didn't really tell you what it is. Like I had a
Hmm.
demo reel, but it was like for an animator job. And
Yeah.
I never actually ended up becoming a proper animator. I animated for like maybe during my internship, and then
Hmm.
after that, it was layout and then character effects, but like um never really became animator.
Hmm.
But as a student coming out from one of those programs, it was like, yeah, there's like so many demo reels that you can make, but like there's also hidden jobs that you don't know about.
Hmm.
Um, that is like kind of a mystery to how people get into them, I guess.
Yeah, it's true actually. Those hidden jobs, to some degree, are like the glue between departments, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. Um, and that was, like I mentioned earlier, that was some of the departments I was running.
Yeah. I mean,
And
character effects was kind
yeah,
of a niche thing at the time.
at the
That kind of,
time, yeah,
and nobody knew about it when we were
yeah,
in school.
hmm
Nobody really talks about it. It wasn't like it wasn't completely effects because it was
hmm
also it has to do with like blend shapes and animation,
yeah,
but it wasn't totally animation either because it's like, oh, it's a simulation. So that was
yeah,
like the hidden niche
yeah.
where school didn't really cover. And you know what? Actually, one major thing I just thought about that school didn't cover, which would be useful if they actually had like some kind of course on it, is actually being production um,
Mm,
in these industries. That if they had a program like that, it would be actually helpful because a lot of people might be actually suited for it,
hmm
but they don't know.
Actually, that's a good point, actually, because I always notice people who joined the production teams
Hmm.
or either came from some kind of like business background
Hmm.
or they came from like a film studies background,
Yeah,
right? They never came from like understanding the nuances that were related to
yeah.
animation,
Like the
you know,
pipeline,
the
knowing the
pipeline.
pipeline
Yeah,
would be very, very helpful.
yeah,
And it's like if someone actually wanted to be production, like even taking the animation program, then
hmm
it's like I feel like there should be a course on that. Yeah.
yeah. That's true, actually. Because you could easily add it to like a business studies course, be like,
Mm.
this is production of film and television. This is
Mm-hmm.
production for gaming. This is
Yeah.
production for XYZ. Whatever courses you want to, like industry you want to specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can definitely, the schools should definitely get into that.
Yeah.
This goes back to like, also like I think school in general not preparing you for a proper, um, how do I say this, proper understanding of the pipeline either,
Yeah.
right? Because I went in going, oh, I also wanted, just like yourself, I also wanted to do animation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll do modeling. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, because after a certain point, you realize, okay, there's enough animators, there's enough modelers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I'm doing character filing, I'm doing character effects, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, and then you realize that's your career path, and then you realize you're suddenly supervisor of that department,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
very interesting. I mean, even like
Yeah.
sometimes looking at some of the people who are in those really weird hidden
hmm
jobs, if you look at their resume, it's like
Yeah.
a lot of it is pretty interesting. Like they've been all over the place or doing
Yeah.
different roles
hmm
until they actually find that one to settle. Actually, this kind of also brings me back to computer engineering schooling because I actually had like a I was in a program which had a lot of co-op,
hmm
and the thing was, I feel like say for example the gaming industry, you do need a lot of like tech people, programmers, gaming programmers, and
Yeah.
but I never saw any of them
hmm
when I was actually in school for like um when they come to hire. It was always the big tech companies. It was always the financial district wanting computer engineers or software engineers, like system designers, all those people. But like, remember when we actually went to SIGGRAPH one year and
hmm
talking to the booth for Disney, and they were saying, oh yeah, we do need like a lot of tech people and programmers
Yeah.
for Disney. And it was like asking them, have you ever gone to these schools with programming
Yeah.
and stuff and actually told them about these jobs? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know,
hmm
and they also don't have a way to get into those industries. But like, for example, some of my friends who graduated from that same program, the computer engineering program, I have a friend who actually worked in Google, and he's always says like he's like, I'm actually interested in getting into gaming or like making my own game. But
Yeah.
like, it's just that they were never really offered a way to get in, and they don't know
Yeah.
how.
I know what you mean.
It's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. These studios, they don't go to these schools or the engineering schools. What is it? Job days or job
Yeah,
fairs,
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely, I think a school definitely has a lot of missed opportunities, like these
Mm-hmm.
universities and these colleges,
Yep.
that they can go further. Like, I would even say, like, one thing I'm still disappointed in my animation schooling was that how they kind of made us feel like we were the next directors or the next superstars, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
When reality was, we're going to get in and we're going to work in a department,
Yep.
and can you jump between departments? Of course, if you have the skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
But in most cases, people would just end up in one department. And every time I think any of my colleagues or people I was supervising,
Mm-hmm.
I would always encourage them to learn a second discipline.
Yep.
And it was never about, it was always about expanding yourself so that you can jump around different departments and maybe you might enjoy the other department more,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe there's a downtime in one department, you can jump to the other department.
Yeah.
It was always about making sure you had a job however the industry fluctuated,
Right.
you know and I think I wish school kind of taught those kind of lessons. It's like, don't just
Mm.
focus on one discipline.
Yeah.
We're going to teach you everything, but make two disciplines your priority.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
if you're doing modeling, learn rigging. If you're
Mm.
doing or surfacing, either
Yeah.
or. If you're doing any of those courses, learn programming.
Yeah. It's actually
you know,
interesting
yeah.
because yeah, like for our schooling, we have to
Mhm.
learn a lot of different disciplines. We have to experience them and then decide. When you actually get into a studio, depending on the size of the studio and how it works, it might be hard to jump between departments as well.
Yeah.
Like for small studios, it's easier to jump between departments, but
Yep.
bigger studios, there's always that bureaucracy there that
Yes.
is very hard, I feel
Yeah,
like.
you're 100% right. And I think I was kind of not frustrated, but I was kind of like unhappy when I first got into like a TV studio,
Mm,
because I think the industry, well, sorry, I take that back. I actually got into films
mm.
first,
Oh,
but then the
okay.
studios that was making the films, they switched gears and became a TV studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little disappointed in that because the one thing with the industry was kind of obsessed with is if you worked in film, you can continue working in film. But if you
Mm,
worked in TV, that looked like down upon. That was like a mark on you that, oh, no one wants to hire you, kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
Like you're just a TV person,
Yeah.
right? But then one thing I realized, the TV experience I got was probably one of some of the best I've ever experienced, because
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned it became a smaller set of projects,
Yeah,
faster pace,
that's right.
and I found that it was so much more rewarding.
Mm,
But then I had a lot of supervisors, my other colleagues, that were kind of like still obsessed with film.
mm-hmm.
And every time they would hire, they would be like, well, you don't have any feature film experience.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I always kind of chuckled a little bit. I'm like, we're making TV shows. Why are we looking for feature film people?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's like, it was very fascinating to me. It's like, you can help people develop the skills
Yeah.
even from TV to feature film.
Yeah.
And clearly for us, we went vice versa from film to TV, because we had to go from a nice leisurely 3 year production cycle to like 3 month
Mm-hmm.
for one episode,
Yeah.
kind of idea. And so it was fascinating to see some people struggle really difficulty
Mm-hmm.
with that new shift
Yeah.
versus some people who were a bit more technical. They were able to pick it up and run with it, kind of
Yeah,
idea,
for sure.
you know?
I
Hmm.
I mean, this kind of I guess go and relate to like the resume a little bit. Like I said, a lot of job postings are like, "Oh yeah, you need 3 to 5 years of experience."
Hmm.
And then a lot of the requirements are like pretty crazy even for like a TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we actually had
Yeah.
that as well
Yeah.
when I was in computer engineering and looking
Hmm.
at some of the postings. And sometimes you just kind of like laugh with your friends. It's like, well, this company, I don't even know. It's kind of like a small company. Like you
Hmm.
don't really know if the name are looking for this person with all these traits. And we're saying if someone actually had all these things, they'll be working for the big companies like Microsoft, Google.
Yeah.
it's like, why would they come and work for you?
Yeah.
So it's also kind of like, match your job listing a little bit better with like,
Yes.
your own studio and where you
Hmm.
stand and like what kind of show you're trying to make, right?
Exactly.
If you're
Exactly.
trying to make a preschool show, like why do you need a film background?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing.
Don't be this elitist mentality.
Yeah, elitist mentality
Basically.
is
Yeah.
what, yeah, is
Hmm.
what it is.
Actually, this is kind of funny. Side's funny story. I think you were there when we were working in character effects.
Mm-hmm.
When we had a shift changeover in a CEO once,
Ah.
and they did a big presentation of how we're gonna be the best animation studio in the world, better than Pixar, better than Disney. And in my head, I'm just like, wait, we're making TV shows.
It's good to have dreams, have realistic
Correct.
ones.
But you got to be realistic about it.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
exactly.
I
I
think
think.
unfortunately the person just again they went from a background that was not animation related and they became in charge
Yeah,
of a studio.
yeah,
And so I unfortunately they just didn't know what they were talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I feel like in this industry, it's just dreams are good, and everyone
Yeah.
probably started with a dream, but
Hmm.
it's also very, very realistic. So you
Yeah.
gotta kind of look at it realistically most of the time.
And one other thing, especially in today's day and age, I
Mm.
think since we're talking about schooling and resumes and first jobs, is definitely focus on side hustles
Mm.
while having a career. Because I
Yeah.
think everything is so expensive now with the
Mm-hmm.
economy and everything. You need to
Yeah.
start focusing on like, can you make, if you're a modeler at home, can you make models and sell them,
Yeah,
right?
passive
As
income,
passive income,
having packs,
Yeah,
selling packs in
yeah,
somewhere. Yeah,
uh,
that's very good idea
yeah.
because I
Mm,
also feel like it's in our industry there's also like a lot of smaller studios where probably it's the earnings are not like that great.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's really hard for people to make ends meet.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm.
And I think, and I'll be honest with you. I think the industry does take advantage of we talked in the beginning how this industry is built on the idea because it is an entertainment industry,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a luxury element to it,
Yep.
and they kind of take that as a way of like making sure they don't pay people,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
which kind of sucks because they're like, oh, you're working in animation, you should be happy,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
kind of find that attitude really, really disappointing
Mm-hmm.
because to me it's like it's still a job at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we worked hard to get where we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't even afford to pay rent or buy
Yeah.
a house with our income, and then on top of that, if a studio kind of frowns upon you doing side gigs
Mm-hmm.
or side hustles or whatever you want to call them, it becomes even more disappointing in my opinion because then you're like kind of you're stuck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, do you continue in this career or do you
Mm-hmm.
move to a different career?
Yeah.
And I've seen some producers really help
Mm-hmm.
encourage, okay, no, we're going to make sure people are paid correctly.
Yeah.
And then I've seen other producers go, nope, let them go and we'll just hire juniors,
Yeah.
right? And it's a really disheartening when it's the other way, when the
Yep.
second, whatever
For
the
sure.
second option,
For sure.
because you're kind of saying that you don't care of all the development, all the skills that you
Mm-hmm.
have, and you're willing to just throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that part of the industry again, no one really discusses it, but there's a lot of like that kind of mentality. And if you can find a place that encourages more teamwork and more growth,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, you
I
know.
feel like, yeah, encouraging teamwork is definitely better than focusing solely on competition. Just
Yes.
because I feel like you get stuff done more easily with teamwork rather than
Yes.
competition. It's just within the same department, but
Hmm.
there are like, I guess because of how this industry is, and everyone, like a lot of department are built on competition, which could
Yeah.
actually be unhealthy.
It could be unhealthy. It all matters on how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, anyways, like we could probably leave that to the next segment. It's like
Mhm.
a pretty, we have pretty, a lot of things to say about like that part.
Yeah, it's a
So,
it's a big topic once you
mhm.
start working, and all about like connections and finding approvals,
Yeah.
well, physically, mentally, you
Hmm.
know, finding the right career path within once you start that job.
Yeah.
There's a few topics that we can cover in the next episode
Yeah.
about
I also
this.
want
Yeah.
to go in depth about like, even
Hmm.
like negotiation,
Hmm.
salary and all that. It's a pretty
Yes,
important topics to talk about. Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Mm.
And I think when you're starting off, unfortunately, you don't have that much
Yeah.
leverage.
Yeah. I
But
don't know like if
once, yeah.
all schools teach that. I mean, I was lucky to be in a
Hmm.
program where we actually had a little bit of guidance about, how to get into the industry. They teach us, how to do resumes, how to do
Hmm.
pitches, how to do interviews, and like even talked about how to negotiate, for
Hmm.
salary. It was great when we actually had that, because I feel like there's some places that don't,
Yeah, I
and people
agree.
just don't really know and they get into it blind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's discuss that in the next episode.
Yep.
That's a wrap on the first episode of Pixel Pushers. Thanks for joining us as we pull back the curtain on the world of movies, TV, and video games. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow creatives. Until next time, keep creating, keep pushing pixels, and we'll see you in the next frame.